Thank you for watching In Any Arena. If you like our content, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. All right, let's get into it. Yo, we're back. What's going on? Happy
What's
Thursday.
going on? What's going on, man? I can't call it. How you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good, bro. It's like something I've been meaning to talk to you about, and I can't remember what it is. Do you remember something we always try to remind everybody of something? I can't.
Well, if we're on the same page, it's definitely got to be about that CLS
That's
treatment,
what it
that
is.
comment, like, and subscribe treatment.
Okay.
If you
Yes.
liking the content that we're putting out, if you want to join our community, please hit that subscribe button. We'll greatly appreciate it. But without further ado, let's get into it, bro.
So, I mean, we coming into this matchup. I don't think anybody expected that the Dolphins would be at top of the AFC East. I don't think anybody suspected that the Bengals would be 1-2 coming into this game. But I think it's going to be an exciting matchup. What are your predictions, or what do you feel coming into this game, Deb?
Well, I tell you this: the Miami Dolphins have played decent football up to this point, and the
Right.
only reason why I'm saying decent is because the Ravens had them beat a few weeks ago. The Bills had them beat a few weeks ago. Just
Mm-hmm.
poor clock management. So, in my humble opinion, the Miami Dolphins are very streaky right now. Which, in my humble opinion, that's not a bad thing, right? Because it's a 17 game season. So you don't want your team peaking at this time. So I think it's good that the Bills actually got a loss, and it's also good that the Dolphins are streaky. So once everything starts to level set and they get into their stride at the end of the season, then they'll be tuned up for the playoffs because the Dolphins are in fact a playoff team. But when I look at this matchup here, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins, I'm leaning towards Cincinnati here. This is a must-win for Cincinnati. They cannot go 1-3, especially in this tough AFC division. I think it's time for Jamar Chase to show who he is, such as also Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. I really want these guys to open up the game, open up the field this week. But haven't heard much about Mixon. I don't think he's hurt or anything, but I haven't heard much about him as well. So the Bengals' Achilles heel right now is that offensive line. Joe
For
Burrow
sure.
is getting killed back there. He's getting
Yeah.
killed, man. So they need to shore up their offensive line for sure. But in the interim, let's focus in on ground and pound, which is going to open up the passing game. Now, looking at the Dolphins and some of the issues that they may have right now, there's a lot of uncertainty around Tua Tagovailoa. In my
Mhm.
humble opinion, he has a concussion. If you go back and look at that hit from Sunday
For that.
against the Bills, his head ricocheted off the turf so hard that when he got up and took a few steps, he started to stumble.
Right.
And the medical professionals are saying back injury, but it, we can deduce based off what we saw that is a concussion. Like that is a concussion.
Yeah.
Like a back injury is not going to make you stumble like that. So I hope that these medical professionals that are helping out on the sidelines and in the blue tents for uh collision protocol, or not collision, concussion protocol, are actually doing their jobs and not necessarily trying to, not be in the best interest of the athlete. So
For
that's
sure.
just my 2 cents. I see the Cincinnati Bengals winning this game. I think it will be a close game. I think the score will be something like 24-30 or 24 to
Mhm.
28. But it will be a very close game. What are your thoughts on the game? Who do you have?
So I've got a lot of different thoughts. Again, not wanting to be biased in terms of my pick, but you mentioned Joe Mixon and what has he been able to do this season. So he's got 163 yards on the ground, 103 yards receiving. So he is making some plays, only 2.8 yards per
Right.
carry.
Yeah.
So I think though, again, the run has been effective. I think they got to feed him some more. When you look at the three-headed monster in the receiving core for the Bengals, you got Jamar Chase with 212 yards receiving, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, both with over 100 yards receiving, and 5 total touchdowns from the group, within the first two games. So again, those guys are doing what we expect. What, again, we didn't expect from the Cincinnati Bengals, or we might have expected to some extent, just not this extent, is the number of times that Joe Burrow will be put on his back. Joe Burrow's been sacked 15 times this season, so an average of 5 sacks per game. He's only thrown 6 touchdowns with 4 interceptions. So with a 64% completion rate. So the efficiency is not quite what we would expect to see from Joe Burrow coming on in his third season. A lot of that has to do with being pressured and not having the time to throw. And so, again, in order to win this game and to win going forward, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have to protect Joe Burrow.
I have a question for you, bro.
For sure.
So, do you think something else that's contributing to Joe Burrow and his significant level of turnover up to this point? I think you say he had 4 interceptions. Do you think it's due to him not having any time to put in some reps in the preseason and the offseason due to the injury?
Yeah, so I think he had appendicitis and got his appendix removed not too long before the season started. I think it's about reps, but I think also when you as a young quarterback, when you begin to make these big plays earlier in your career, and we've seen it with Patrick Mahomes at times as well, there's a tendency to hold on to the football because you're waiting. You got Jamar Chase. You know that at some point, even if it feels like it's the last second, that he's going to break open, and you want to make that big throw, or you want to make that drop off pass to Joe Mixon, and for him to take it 25 yards on 3rd and 12. And it's happened for the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think it's a combination of, not having time in the pocket, a combination of not having the reps prior to the season, and also, a combination of holding on to the ball a little too long when it comes down to it. So I think, it's going to be something you got to think about. But Tyler Boyd, so far, I believe, is second in yards after catch in the league. So he's been catching the ball, breaking tackles. They got to feed him some more. On the other side, when we talk about the Dolphins offense, so Tua has been everything that maybe we didn't think he would be. 8 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions, almost 1,000 passing yards in the first 3 games of the season. He's at 925 yards. So they are doing their thing. They're 8th in the league in points per game. They're putting up points. They're getting the ball to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Those guys have a combined 659 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. So, the 2-headed monster in Miami has as many touchdowns as the 3-headed monster in Cincinnati. What is alarming coming from the Dolphins offense is just the fact that they're not able to run the ball. On the ground, their leading rusher, Raheem Mostert, only has 78 yards rushing. On the flip side, Joe Burrow has 73 yards rushing himself.
That's crazy. That's a crazy stat.
He's averaging 4.9 yards a carry. Now, that is a product of being pushed out of the pocket and him being under duress and having to figure out something to do. But you're not going to go very far in the league when you've got 2 guys that are only combining for 150 rush yards on the game. That's 50 yards a game that they're combining for. So they're not showing up in that facet of the game. So I think, the keys to the game are going to be on offense, the Bengals protecting Joe Burrow, giving him time so he can make the throws that he makes, and we've seen him do over the past 2 years. And on the defensive side of the ball, the keys for the Dolphins are just going to be to improve their passing defense. The Dolphins are second to last in the league in passing defense, which doesn't bode well when you've got the Cincinnati Bengals who are fired up off of a rough start to their season, and you're going into the Bengals den to play against them. So you're not playing at home. You don't have the advantage of the heat. You're playing in Cincinnati. It's going to be a very tough game. As such, I think it's going to be a really high-scoring game. If you don't have a good passing defense, how are you going to slow the Bengals down? I think the Bengals are going to get Joe Mixon going on the ground early. They're going to feed Chase. They're going to feed Boyd, and they're going to open up the floodgates. I do think the Miami Dolphins will be able to score, but at what rate? We don't know how healthy Tua Tagovailoa is coming into this game. Again, you mentioned that big hit that he took on Sunday. It did look like a concussion to me. I've seen many in my life, and it did look like something that could be some type of neural injury. So I don't know exactly what will happen there. Right now, he's not on the injury report. He's expected to play. But, again, that was just on Sunday. It's Thursday. They haven't got the full week to recoup. I think it's going to be tough sledding if Tua can't go tonight. And if he can't go and they've got to go with Teddy Bridgewater, I think it ends up being a game that really opens up and the Cincinnati Bengals win big. If Tua's able to play and able to be as effective as we saw him be in the first 3 weeks, I think it's still going to be a high-scoring game. But I think what it comes down to is Joe Burrow in the fourth quarter against this dismal Miami passing defense. And I think he leads the Cincinnati Bengals to a win.
So before we put a bow on this game, because I know typically I don't like to talk too much about these Thursday night games, like long videos, but there's some very good information here, and I hope you guys are watching and taking notes, because this information will help you make bets or whatever you decide to do. But this information is definitely insightful. When I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, right, over the past 3 weeks, the 2 losses that they have in total, 6 points. I mean,
Right.
so they lost by 3 to the Steelers and they lost by 3 to the Cowboys. And in those games, Joe Burrow just didn't play his best, right? And it's not
Right.
really necessarily his fault. Timing and rhythm is definitely important. He's passing the ball too much. Like, you can't continue to have your quarterback throwing 40 and 50 times per game. That's just entirely too much. Let's bring him down to about 30 attempts, 30 to 35 attempts. Let's give Joe Mixon the ball, and they'll be fine tonight. So, in my humble opinion, I think the Bengals are right on pace of where they left off last year. They just have to fine-tune things and clean everything up. So, it should be an interesting game this evening. But to your point, I think Cincinnati will come out on top.
For sure. All right. Dub said it earlier. We're here to give you the picks. We're here to give you our predictions. We're here to just talk about sports with you. If you guys could give us that CLS treatment, comment, like, subscribe, and we'll be back with any arena.
All right, y'all. Peace.